Okay, this is basic masking for Anime Studio. I'm using the Pro version, so you'll see a lot of group layers. If you have standard, just go ahead and use bone layers. They work all the same for masking. Okay, I've provided this file, Basics of Masking, Work in Progress. And this is what I'm going to start to show you with. You can follow along or try to work it out for yourself after you watch this. Okay, first off, we've got two group layers and a backdrop. Backdrop's just there, make it look pretty. I'm going to start with the hide all. I'll go ahead and expand that. Turn my backdrop back on. And you can see we've got a pretty goofy looking setup here. So I'll show you what all that consists of. Got a face layer, eye outlines, eye white that we only need depending on how we want to set this mask up, and I'll show you both ways, and irises, which as you can see, if I select that, are expanded out beyond the eyes. That's really what we want to take care of first off. Okay, this is where I want it. Okay, turn all that on. Now these upper groups marked show all, hide all are just to separate it out. I'm not really using those as part of the masking. I'm using these ones that are marked masking group in both. So, let's see, I'll go ahead and turn the sclera or the eye white layer off. You'll see why I use that later. Okay. Simplest and easiest way to do this, I think, is hide all. I like hide all. In the masking options for group mask, you have the options to reveal all and hide all. Basically, you could go about it using either. It just depends on how you want to go about it. Occasionally, there might be a reason that you need to pick one or the other, but usually you can figure out a way to work with whichever one you start with, just depending on. I usually use hide all because obviously there's more options for what you add, for how you add stuff to your mask. Whereas there's only one option for how you subtract stuff from your mask. So I'll start with the one I like to use most first. So I'll set up the group mask for hide all. And that's in our hide all folder, or group layer. You can see what hide all did immediately. Is everything's disappeared. Let's see. We will show you that. Turn off our masking. There's everything. And then do hide all again. As soon as we hit OK, it hides everything. Which is basically like saying the whole thing is by default subtracted from the mask. Meaning the mask is completely clear. Now, first off, I want to do is my face layer. As you can see by the vectors highlighted there. How I'm going to be doing this, I don't need to mask this layer. In this situation, I have two options. I can do don't mask this layer, and then it shows the face layer. Or I can actually add it to the mask, but then it adds everything above it to the mask. And we could actually start with that too, but for now I'm going to not mask that layer. I'm going to try to keep the masking as minimum as possible to accomplish the goals, accomplish the task we're trying to accomplish here. Okay, the eyes. As you can see, I've already called those a plus mask because the mask is cleared. The face right now is just not masked. It's not being touched. It's just a normal vector layer just sitting there. Everything above it is still part of the masking group that's been cleared because by default, everything is mask this layer. Mask this layer means it will automatically do whatever the masking is operating on it. Right now, the only mask operating on the eye layer is our group mask, which is hide all. So you cannot see your eye layer. You can see the vectors highlighted, but that's only because we've selected that layer. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to see those eyes. So if the mask is clear, I need to add the eye layer to the mask. Go ahead. Okay, and there we go. Now we've added the eye layer, and now we can see our irises, and they're actually cut off properly. This is because only the parts of the layers that intersect the eye layer, at least only the layers above the eye layer that intersect the shapes covered by the eye layer are going to show. And I'll show you why. I've done this little animation that separates everything out so you can see that the irises are only allowed to draw within the part that's added to the mask. Because by themselves, the irises or pupils, I call them irises here, since the irises are masked, which is the default to mask this layer, the only masking operating on them all by themselves is the group mask, which is set to hide all, which basically clears or hides the iris layer. Now, since I've added in the eye layer, you can see that you can only see the irises. They're only allowed to draw within the eye layer. And in this case, the face layer is just sitting there. It doesn't really do any masking at all. If I wanted to, I could even take that face layer and take it out of the masking group, and it would have absolutely no effect on this. Okay. Now the other option in a hide all is if I want to take the face and I want to add the face to the mask. Now that allows everything to draw. Let me change the eyes back to mask. Since I've added the face, that allows everything, both the iris and the eyes, to only draw within the face. Okay, now since I've added the face, wait a second, I've got him ahead of myself. I don't want to do that. Don't mask this layer. Okay. Now the sclera here, where I'd want to use that is if I wanted to, let's see, wanted to, I could take the eye layer and add it to mask but keep it invisible. I'll show you what this does. Okay, now you can see that it still blocks off the irises, just like it did, but you can no longer see the white fill that I had in the eye shapes. And every once in a while, there is actually a reason to use this. Not necessarily for the example I'm showing here, but you will find uses for it as you get more complex masking. Now, though, if I add the sclera in, then I'm allowing both the layers that are above the eye layer to draw within the shapes contained in the eye layer. And since the eye layer is added but invisible, I don't have their whites, so adding the sclera adds a white below the iris that can show through the eye layer. And I'll go ahead and separate that out so you can see what we're doing. You notice the sclera is only being drawn within the eye layer, and then the irises are only being drawn within the eye layer as well. But none of them really affect the face at all, since the face is not masked. Okay. Now to move on to our show-all example. Okay, in the show-all is the same deal. We start out with our masking group, and we say reveal all, show all, reveal all. Same difference. What this does is it just shows everything. Everything is already on the mask, meaning everything's already added to the mask. Here, since our face layer is on top, it's actually covering all of our other layers that are hidden down in there. And the setup between show all and hide all is just kind of backwards, just like show and hide implies. Not exactly backwards, but generally backwards. Let's see. Now, when you're using reveal all or show all for a masking group, in order to change your masking, you're going to have to start with subtracting, because the whole thing is added to the mask. So in order to change any of that, the only thing you can do is subtract from the mask. So I want to go to my eyes, and basically subtracting from the mask will make the eye layer invisible. The eyes do have fills on them. Let me show you that. Yeah, there we go. You can hide those two and show you that the eyes do have white fills in them, just like the other one. This is based off a duplicate of the hide all I just showed you. So the eye shapes are exactly the same, and they have a white fill in them. Turn all this back on. So the eye layers we want to subtract from the mask, which will be the equivalent of punching holes through the layer above it. Masking always works upward. You look at a stack. Let's see. Probably should have covered this earlier, but when you're looking at a stack of layers, you're looking at them from the top of your layer palette down. So the sclera is the bottom, the irises lay on top of it, the eyes lay on top of that, and the face lays on top of all that. Probably one of the biggest problems people have understanding masking is that masking works the opposite direction. A lower masking operation only affects those above it, except for the group masking operation that we set up. the reveal all and hide all and no mask in this group just affects everything. It's your basis for the whole masking within the group. Okay. So having my face on top and my eyes below, my eyes will only affect my face without affecting the iris or sclera. So I need the eyes to punch a hole in the face layer to let me see the irises and the eye whites. So in masking tab, we'll subtract from mask, and that will make this layer invisible. Once again, being invisible, just like adding to the mask but keeping invisible we did a second ago, I will not be able to see the white fills in these eyes. And all subtraction is just invisible, because it's subtracting itself as well as everything that's over those fills on that layer. So now, subtracting that from the mask, meaning everything is masked except we've subtracted these shapes. So now you can see the pupils, or the iris, and the sclera underneath. And you can see I've separated this out again. And these are actually how they're stacked over here. You've got the face mask on top, you've got the eye layer, you've got the iris layer, and then you've got the sclera on bottom. And you can see how the masking works. And it's not exactly what you would think as far as how your layers are stacked up. Let me go and show you in the hide all example again. Let's go ahead and fix this back to the easy way. Okay. Now you can see these are also separated out as they are stacked in our layer palette. You've got the irises up top, you've got the sclera, which is right there, you've got the eyes, and then you've got the face. So I've done this little separation animation exactly as they're laid out in your layers palette. So this is, if you use the basic masking finished file, you can use that as a reference to show you how the masking works in relation to how you're stacked, your layers are stacked in your masking group. Let's see. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we need for that one. I'll go ahead and close it out. No, I'd leave that. Okay, now I've opened up the basic masking. This is just like the file I just showed you, except it's all finished, but it has some extra details. Since we did the show all last, I'll go ahead and show you that. Okay. These are basically all the same, except I've added in some layers such as Masking Effect 2 and the Lightbox group. These are to try to give you a more technical explanation, or not really a technical explanation, but an analogy to try to get a grasp on what the masking is doing. Okay, we have the show all set up. Basically just like we had it in the previous work in progress file that you just saw me finish the masking on. Now this is the show all, so basically what happens is when you show all, basically it's like turning I'm calling it a light box on underneath your stack. Now, as I go ahead and separate out the layers as they are divided. As they're divided by in your layer palette. You've got your face, eyes, iris, and sclera in the same order that they're lined up in your layer palette. Now I've added in these visual indicators to show you what the masking is actually doing. You've got your light box on, which indicates show all. And then when we separate it, you can see that the eyes are minus mask, so they're actually blocking anything above it from being lit. In other words, technically it's blocking the alpha value. It's reducing it to 0. I'll try to give you a quick rundown on what an alpha value is. Okay, let's go up to my face layer, select a shape, go into styles, and in my color picker for that shape, you have alpha value. That's this slider right here. Alpha value is just simply the value of a color from 100% opaque all the way down to 100% transparent. So somewhere about in the middle you'd have about 50% transparent. So if I do that, you can actually see that the yellow of the face has actually gotten transparent, and you can see the blue starting to come through it. Go ahead and put that back real quick. Okay, now what that has to do with masking. Okay, our eyes are subtracted from the mask. So, subtracted from the mask means they are reducing the alpha value of everything above these shapes to 0 because it's subtraction. So if I take one of these shapes, and reduce its alpha value, render it, then you can see that it's only cutting a 50% transparent hole through that face layer above it. Because I've taken a subtraction, and whereas the subtraction is by default, if you've got opaque colors, the subtraction is 100% transparency, which is what this eye is right here. So let me go back in here and change that back. Make it opaque, which being a subtraction is 100% subtraction. There we go. For some reason that's not. There we go. There we go. Sometimes things in our preview view, while masking, do not show what the render shows. There's a lot of things like that, but masking is definitely one of those things that not all of your masking tricks, just like a gradient fill, doesn't show up unless you do a render. Like selecting a shape. Because it's a mask, for some reason selecting it, the preview decides it's going to do that, but it's just selected. It's not actually altering any of your mask right there. Hit enter to deselect it. Okay, let's see, let's go back into our hide all, turn the backdrop back on. Okay, hide all, and I'll get back to the alpha value in a second to show you another example of it. What hide all does is turn the light off, so to speak. And then the eyes, which we added to the mask, is actually adding light, or adding a positive alpha value, meaning that it can be, it is anything above this layer within these shapes is going to be 100% opaque. Now, I just showed you where we could change the alpha value of a shape. You can also come in here on any layer and on your opacity percentage, let's change that to about 50. You can change the opacity of an entire layer, which then we've got basically what we had with the one eye except with both eyes. And since we're adding to the mask here, instead of it subtracting 50%, it's actually adding 50% of the iris layer. Let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to show you on my show all. You've got the eye layer, which is subtracting out. But when you're subtracting, you're making a hole in what is above it, which actually allows you to see everything that's below it. And you can mess around with these and keep these around for reference material. Hopefully, I've set these up so that they're good to go back to and reference if you need to. In my next tutorial, I will cover some of the more advanced masking. I showed you add to mask but keep invisible, and subtract from mask. But clear the mask and add this layer to it is really an advanced masking option, I think. So I'll save that for the next tutorial and see if there's any more, if anybody has any questions or needs anything else in the basic masking clarified.